Hello, everybody. Welcome to Untether.tv. This is obviously the place you come to listen to me talking with mobile rock stars. And I've got one today with Andrew Paradise, who is the CEO and founder of a company called Aislebuyer. And I'm going to paint a little picture here about what these guys do. Just picture in your head, you're standing in a retail location. You are trying to buy something. You've decided what you want to buy. You want to check the prices like everybody does now with the devices that we have that allow you to, barcode scan to see if Amazon's selling it cheaper or who's selling it cheaper. But this is a little bit of a different twist. It allows you to scan the product, and then instead of waiting in line, it actually might allow you to buy it and just circumvent that long line of people waiting to go to that outdated mode of payment called the cash register. So I'm just painting a little bit of context around this. We're going to get into a great conversation, as this is another one of those series that another one of those episodes of the series that I'm doing on the impact that mobile is going to be having in certain segments of our lives. And obviously, I think that retail is going to be one of those that is going to be affected immensely. And Andrew is going to help walk us through some of the changes that are happening and some of the things that Aislebuyer is actually doing to facilitate these changes on the forefront of innovation. Andrew, thanks for coming on, man. I really appreciate you spending some time this afternoon and enlightening us as to what's going on in the retail space when it comes to mobile. Thanks for doing this.
Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
So, I'm hopeful that I got some of it right. You guys are classified as a mobile self-checkout solution for retailers, but there's so much more to what you guys do. And it seems like every day there's so much more that you guys are doing. So why don't you give everybody a little bit of an insight about what Aislebuyer actually does?
Sure. So we founded the company with the idea that we could use camera phones to do augmented reality in stores. This was really before companies were doing kind of the barcode scan with a cell phone, and it became quickly apparent. We had started moving towards building our first barcoding solution around the same time that companies like Red Laser and Shop Savvy sprung up. And what became apparent to us is that there was a pretty sizable push by those kinds of companies towards online comparison shopping using barcodes. Yeah. But really no one had worked on how to build a augmented in-store experience using smartphones and using image recognition. So we really started working on how we could redesign the store experience from when you walk in the door until you walk out of the door using mobile phones. And we started with the checkout because we felt like that was a really interesting place to start. And the idea there was, okay, so since the history of retail, people have always paid at the edge of the store. There's been a shopkeeper, and that's evolved into store clerks. But what if everyone could just take out their phone and tap and pay on it? And how would that work? We started working through that, and then we moved into the image recognition piece of being able to add barcodes and invented mobile self-checkout. And the idea here really is that we can put a self-checkout machine inside your phone by letting you have an algorithm that will let you scan things with your phone and then tap and actually make payments. And first we used PayPal for making payments, and then we moved from there to actually building out a mobile wallet so that the retailers that we sell to now can have 68 different payment types.
68?
68, yeah. Everything from loyalty, gift card points, virtual currencies to your major credit cards and anybody, your Visa debit, things like that. Yep. And we've, at the same time, in the last 2 years, we've gone from myself and a few developers just kind of writing code to a 28-person team. And we've gone from launching out of stealth mode after about 16 months this past August to we have signed up brands representing about 9,000 stores.
Wow.
So you'll see it in a lot of places really soon. I think it's going to be, whether it's us or somebody else, I think that mobile payments and being able to have this kind of immersive cell phone experience from inside the retailer to the edge of the retailer to even beyond is going to be huge, way beyond Aislebuyer, although I hope we're the one to bring it to you.
Well, and let's just go back a little bit to that story, because you went from integration with PayPal, which I think is always everybody's first test into this, is especially when they're testing transactions, and a trusted brand like PayPal. Talk about the way that, so 68 payment methods from loyalty cards to other credit cards. Was this a challenge to build that mobile wallet piece? Is that just a separate product, or is it? Talk about that process to build that.
Right. So the way we built the entire product, actually, it's a software development kit, and we're going to actually start making it available to mobile developers very soon, so that they can use our software development kit to connect to physical stores. And I think you're going to see everything from kind of early concepts like Foursquare, Scavenger, onwards, starting to involve real-world actions.
Yeah.
So whether it's a retail store, a museum, or anything else, all these different physical locations are now becoming mobilely enabled. What I mean by that is there are certain things you might do at a museum, like look at the museum map, or buy an admission ticket or a membership. Imagine if you can do all of those things with your phone, and then imagine if beyond that there's an API layer sitting on top of it that allows mobile developers to build new kinds of applications we never even dreamed of. Yeah. Think about like Foursquare, but instead of doing a check-in, what if a museum could give you a couple of points for each exhibit you go to?
Yeah.
And you can get really interesting, really specific interactive experiences that were never possible when it was kind of a kiosk-only world. The amazing thing, I think, is that these devices are so inexpensive. There's so many of them. I just saw a stat. I think it's a projection that there'll be more than 10 billion of these devices by the end of next year.
Yeah.
I think I don't know if you've seen this stat, Rob, but I saw one recently that we just passed more shipments of smartphones than personal computers.
Jeez, yeah, it's a tipping point, obviously.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah.
So quickly. I mean, it's been just a handful of years.
But it really does. It seems to have crept up on a lot of people. This transition from PCs to mobile devices. This has been going on in Asia for quite a number of years, where the number of mobile devices out there far surpasses the number of PCs, just because of the infrastructure or lack of infrastructure for the internet and for connectivity out there. But and they have a massive infrastructure in 4G and 3G networks. But it's interesting to talk about the way that you perceive mobile. And the opportunities that applications like Aislebuyer or applications like Foursquare and integration with payments really do kind of augment innovation. So you think about one of the biggest challenges, and it's something that I was going to come to, that if you've got a mobile device and with mechanisms to pay with 68 different ways, so all your credit cards are on there and your loyalty cards, it becomes a pretty important device in your life. And could it be opened up to fraud a little bit easier? But with a location stamp, there's an added value that you can check to make sure that person is in fact standing in the appropriate store, the appropriate location, and the credit card is being charged by the appropriate store in that location. So it's it's a referential balance in order to be able to make sure that the transaction is actually valid, isn't it?
Absolutely. I mean, if you think about it, the credit card companies do this today to some extent. You may go and make some payments at different stores, and then within an hour, after a few payments have gone out, they'll call you up and say, "Hey, did you authorize these payments?"
Yeah.
But the more exciting thing is, what if you can do it before they even transact?
Yeah.
What if you can start that location monitoring and say, "Hey, it's very unlikely this person was in Texas 1 minute,
exactly,
and might be same in Florida."
You never know.
Or whatever.
We haven't invented the teleportation device yet, so as soon as that happens, there's a whole other issue. But so you guys, you built the e-wallet, and I remember reading Bill Gates's book, in the '90s. I think it's called the Road Ahead, and he was talking about there was this goofy accompanying video that came with it, and he was talking about in his book about the mobile wallet of the future. So that was 16 years ago that he visioned the mobile wallet. And it wasn't his vision, but it was the one that I remember somebody articulating. You think that are we ready for this as humans to be able to get rid of the plastic and use titanium, plastic, and glass as our new wallet? Is that what you're banking on with what you're doing?
I think what we're banking on is that people will want to use our shopping system for shopping in retail stores. The payment wallet is part of that, but it's not the be-all and end-all. I think the big kind of chicken or egg situation that's been going on with mobile payments in the U.S. for more than 10 years has been, will the retailers adopt the technology to allow people to make payments, or will the consumers start having a phone that can allow them to make payments? Yeah. And how is it going to work? And when does the card become part of the wallet? And so if you actually look, I've seen some pretty unbelievable numbers around RFID or NFC-enabled payment pads. The really scary one that I've heard is that the number of NFC-enabled payment pads is actually below 5%.
Yeah.
I've also heard numbers that suggest much higher than that. All of them, though, are way below your kind of mass market adoption. Yeah. Mass market, loosely defined when I worked in venture investing, is 25% of the market. Yeah. So if you think about it, to really make a mobile wallet work, if you're going down the NFC route, you need to get 25% of all the places you go to have that payment type, to even begin to get mobile wallet adoption. Yeah. And it's just hasn't happened, has not happened. I mean, this is, withdrawing money from the ATM and then going to the gas station and so forth, all of those places you go in a day, and you may use cash or credit and not really think about it. And the solution that we've really built out is we can build very, very compelling shopping experiences and use a somewhat, I would say we're kind of a hybrid from an e-commerce payment. It's we've gone closer to e-commerce than probably most of the mobile wallet payment options out there. Yeah. It's kind of, if you could do it online, why can't we do it in a physical store with some modifications to make that work? Yeah. Approach, as opposed to saying, let's build a whole new infrastructure and build out NFC. I think NFC may or may not gain mass market adoption for mobile payments. I'll tell you this: when I worked in venture investing, we had backed an RFID company, and RFID has not become the promise and savior of retail that everyone thought it would. No. The big promise back then, this is 5+ years ago, where everyone was saying, I can't wait until the shopper will push the shopping trolley out of the store, and as they push it out, it'll instantly throw all the items onto a monitor up there, and you'll be looking up at the monitor, and then it'll say, "Thank you, Rob."
Exactly.
You've been charged, all without pulling the wallet out of your phone or out of your pocket. Sorry.
Yeah, or putting the food up onto the conveyor belts at the grocery store.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was swept into that as well, and I thought, wouldn't it be great if you could just, I see just a bank of grocery store and a bank of products, but they're not really products. They're just cutouts or reasonable facsimiles or pictures of it, and you just sit there, and everybody's embedded with a chip in their finger when they're a kid, and that's all your data, and you just scan everything that you want, and by the time you get to the front, it's paid for and it's boxed for you. I called it the Midas touch, and then somebody said, well, it would have to be an organic mechanism, because if somebody really wanted you, they would cut your finger off and take all your money and your identity, and then I stopped producing it. I stopped testing it on myself, right? But you're right. It's RFID was the promise. It was to track your food, what animal it came from, and all the way down to the package and into your kitchen. And it was also the way that retail was going to be revolutionized by RFID. Maybe there is some of that in I think Walmart was using RFID for managing their inventory. Mm-hmm. But I see a lot of similarities between that 5 years ago and RFID or QR codes and NFC today, and maybe the adoption rate. I've heard people say that 2011 is going to be the year of NFC and mobile commerce, and when there's only one phone in the world that right now that's in production that has NFC built into it, and they're doing a trial in Oregon and nowhere else, and we're already almost into March. My inclination is to say no. 2011 might not be the year of NFC.
A little early.
But when you guys look at this, it's a natural evolution to take the web payments and bring those onto the mobile devices. So when I set up a credit card, am I setting that up on a mobile device, or am I setting that up through a web portal? How does that work?
Today we have all the setup happen. Basically, everything happen through the phones. Okay. And the reason we do that is because your computer isn't location aware, and we use that as an added security measure. You can't actually use Aislebuyer without enabling location services.
Okay.
And we think it's really important that we can track locations so that we can help reduce fraud.
Yeah.
Knock on wood, I'm hopeful may never have a fraudulent problem. But I will say, I mean, if you think about it from a certain perspective, that the added step of having to put your payment details into a location-aware device that's connected to the AT&T or Verizon network, there are a lot easier ways to steal or commit fraud in a retail environment than to use Aislebuyer. Aislebuyer is probably the most difficult way. And we've had numbers that support that. Now, I don't want to say that without saying, any system is penetrable. Given the right resources and right time. And I certainly would never want to incent anyone to think they need to prove that to us.
No, this isn't a challenge.
No, this is not a challenge. Yes. But having said that, we've seen a lot lower rates than what you'd see at the cash register. And the reason being that I think if you are going to go down that pathway, you're more likely to want to stay anonymous, go to the cash register, not use location-aware personalized device. So there's, I think, a benefit for the retailer there in terms of being able to reduce those factors.
It would make it really interesting and not foolproof because, as you said, I mean, everybody who thinks that they're foolproof are foolish. And given enough resources, anything can be cracked. But I love the idea of maybe taking for every transaction that you do on your platform for Aislebuyer, and if it's got a front-facing camera, take a picture of the person who's leaning over the device like this, trying to push it through, so that you get context. You might be able to you add that another layer of fraud detection. So every time a transaction has happened, it's like snip, and it's an encoded or it's a photo that can only be accessed in the event that fraud happens. Right? You can't modify that picture. There's your $1 million idea. Right there, Andy.
I give you a nickel every time I use that.
There you go. Take a picture of the person who's buying, right, and then send it somewhere. Yeah, but because that's really the best thing is that you want to it's like the old club, for your steering wheels as a security parameter for your car, is that it really wasn't a deterrent because you could freeze it and smash it in a second, but it was just that extra step that maybe some thieves are a little lazy. Not calling thieves lazy, but
I mean, numbers certainly show that that's the case. That you have reduced problems. Just the more difficult. It's like the common one, locking your door. I mean, even if it has a window.
Yeah, I know.
It just reduces things a little bit further. And I think that's compelling. That if you look at it. If we go from the e-commerce world and adapt to Mcommerce, and we're adding in another security element, you're going to see numbers that are going to come down from e-commerce. And I think almost anyone in the industry would kind of point that out, that that clearly e-commerce problem rates, very loosely, let's just say problems, that has been managed down to a level where that makes it's economically viable. And I think in the same way, this is maybe even one step better.
So let's talk about this, a broad picture, because you guys, the services that you guys offer are widespread. Because once you get the application installed and you're in a retail environment, you can start pushing things, which I think not a lot of applications have done this very well. Which is, you've got a captive audience in your store. You've driven them there somehow, but then so you can push information to them, you can push deals to them, you can start to think about ways that you can match deals if you find another product that's similar or comparable that's cheaper online. You really empower the retailer to not lose that sale that you see every day. I go into Best Buy and I scan a TV and I look on Amazon and it's always cheaper on Amazon, and I walk out and buy it on Amazon. Are you guys helping combat that? Because that's a big challenge in retail, I would say.
Absolutely. I just think that we're not quite in the world of totally transparent pricing, where that makes a lot of sense to implement in a real-world environment. I think as we move towards transparent pricing, you'll see offerings from our company and others that help retailers understand the level of information the consumer is receiving at the point of decision, and perhaps make an alternate offer. Just, we're talking as surely as you're using something like Red Laser every time you shop.
Yes. No.
Not everyone is as of yet. It's still small numbers, and so I think you haven't really hit that tipping point where it makes sense to really examine how to make those offers to the mass market. We're just in that period of transition. I think, to your point before, what's going on in mobile is bigger, as big, if not bigger, than what happened in the dot-com boom. I think you're going to see, I like to think that all of these bubbles, so to speak, are caused by creative product resulting in people having more productive hours in the day. If you think about what the internet and personal computing did for the average worker in the world, I mean, you're talking. I was talking to one of the original Apple salesmen the other day, and he was telling me about how he'd walk into a corporation and he'd say, "How would you like it if this thing you did, which took 2 weeks, which is creating a spreadsheet with a calculator, how'd you like if you could do that in 30 seconds?"
Yeah.
And you can recalculate that spreadsheet every 30 seconds. Now, I mean, today, it's sub-second, but, but 30 seconds was amazing. And as a result, I think personal computing and later onwards the internet, surely there's a valuation bubble, but there's also a huge gain in productivity where people just went from, the example I use is that in a lot of ways I feel like the smartphones that are now being released are more similar to something like the Star Trek communicator than they are to original cell phones. It's really a fully internet-enabled device that has enough speed and bandwidth and memory and storage space that you can really get almost any information that the collective internet has at your fingertips, and it's very much like it's like an early version of the Star Trek communicator. It doesn't talk yet. I can't beam up. But
I can't be in Texas and Florida, but yeah.
Can't do Texas and Florida.
No.
At least not legally.
No. But it's an odd spot right now because I mean, as you said, we're really now in that cosmic soup kind of stage when it comes to building out what mobile is going to look like, and a lot of it is a shot in the dark. A lot of it is kind of taking assumptions about what people are interested in doing with mobile, like checking out early or not waiting in line or mobile wallets, and kind of trying to see if it actually works or if it sticks or what does, what doesn't. I think that's why we're seeing so many, mobile retail right now is coupons. I mean, we got to get past that, but that's why we're seeing so many, because it worked once and now everybody has to do it because people are generating revenue from it. But when you look at retail, I've had some fascinating conversations about the impact that mobile is going to have on retail in general. And you guys are in that space. You're deep into it. You're changing the way things happen. And one of the biggest aha moments for me is kind of when I realized that the cash register is going to disappear. Right? There's going to be a point in time in my lifetime where the whole retail infrastructure that we've been building, it's a science that we've been building forever since retail, since retail's history began, is about to be turned on its head because it's all been pointed towards that back spot where the cash register is, and you walk through all the other products, and the cash register has impulse buys all around it that that are there because there's a science that says people are going to buy retail. Little ding-dangs at the cash register.
Sure.
We're changing that. You guys are changing that. Right? Cash registers are dying. And that's because of mobile. Do you see that happening?
I think in the short term, you're going to see mobile devices really be supplementary to point of sale, whether it's self-checkout or traditional point of sale. In the longer term, certainly there's going to be a reduced number of devices at the front of the store. I don't know if I'll live to see the day when there are zero, store associate devices. And I think I'm younger than you, but I can't tell.
Exactly. I keep myself in shape,
Yeah. But what I mean by that is just that that's certainly going to happen over time.
Yeah.
I think there is always going to be at least one store device in case, for whatever reason, the person hasn't brought theirs with them. And or there's a huge consumer behavior shift here. Let me give you an idea of the numbers, though. Over the Black Friday holiday shopping weekend last year, we did 12% of in-store volume across 12%.
Okay.
So
12%.
it's at 12%, and these are people walking to the store who have never shopped with their mobile phone before.
Yeah.
12% adoption, which I think it just goes to show you that if there's a long checkout line and you're offering buy with your phone and leave, it's very popular. And I think innovations like that are what's possible with mobile. It's really exciting with mobile. I look at, I think maybe one of the biggest opportunity areas in mobile over the next 5 years is augmented reality. And Aislebuyer is just one example of AR. I think you're going to see everything from, what I've been waiting for? And I was thinking about maybe coding this myself, but I want to see somebody build the AR version of Frogger, right?
Yeah.
So you're standing there with your phone and you're pointing at real traffic, and you can see the cars whizzing by. And you can jump a little frog across real traffic.
Well, so whoever's listening that can develop games, go ahead and do that. I think, Andrew, you've just opened it up as Creative Commons as a result. But why, I just had a great conversation with somebody today about augmented reality, and is this something, like, is there a place for this? And so when you look at augmented reality, what do you think, how do you think that's going to play in retail proper?
Well, I think Gen 1 is what you're seeing right now, which is barcode scanners, and then QR scanners. The reason is that it's just very, very easy to build an algorithm to decipher those two kinds of codes because they're standard formats. But I think the really exciting stuff is that everyone from Google onwards is trying to teach a computer how to actually have vision using different sensors. And the question is it going to be a spot solution solve, or is it going to be a broad solve? And depending on how that works, I think you're going to see a very different kind of landscape. At least for now, there are certainly spot solution solves like the barcode scanner. I've talked to folks about building a real, actual, real-time overlay that you can just point your phone around the store and see all the information layered on top of everything in the store. If things like that happen, QR codes, to your point, aren't going to be very compelling because you'll just point the phone at the product and they'll overlay, click here to play the video, click here to, here's the coupons, so forth. Which way it's going to go, I think, is going to depend on more on the algorithm kind of technology around computer vision, and whether it's a technology provider that really builds that computer vision product and licenses it out to the industry, or if it's really these kind of individual industry solutions that keep being formed as spot solutions.
Okay.
I'd say in the next 2 years, if you're going to ask me, it's going to be spot solutions. But I've seen some really interesting work in the kind of broad computer vision, and it may not be as far away as we think.
Yeah. I mean, we're on a pace here that's unprecedented. What took 10 years in the internet time will take 2 in mobile at the most. And I mean, we're already seeing constructive deconstruction when it comes to some of the business models that were really people were really excited about 6 months ago, right? So and a lot of that stuff has been commoditized already in mobile, like location. It's a commodity. It's not a feature anymore. I mean, you have to have it, right? It's in every app. So
I know a company that would hope to argue differently with you, but yes, they've run into some problems.
Yeah, 100%. A lot of these guys are, and I think that. I look at Foursquare, and Foursquare's got 7 million users. They're cresting 7 million now, and I still think, well, so Facebook has 270 million mobile users that could access Facebook Places, and Deals is free, by the way, and so it's a big challenge when you're building your business on a commodity.
Yeah, I agree with you. We had this debate just recently about was on a panel, and we were debating on whether or not. Whether Foursquare or Facebook Places was going to dominate. And I said, which is what I'll reiterate, why, it's one thing if you have an aggregator like a friend feed where you're trying to aggregate Twitter and Facebook and so forth. It's another thing if you have an aggregator where you aggregate check-ins. So if I'm a developer, wouldn't I rather make it so that whoever's in whatever store or whatever place, they can check into, Where and Facebook and Twitter and everything else, all with one button.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like they're actually saying a message; they're just saying, "I'm here."
Yeah.
And usually, when people want to do that, they broadcast it. So
it's an ego thing, and I interviewed FootFeed. Does the exact same thing. It just hammers it all, right?
It's friend feed for.
It's called FootFeed. Yeah, it's great.
FootFeed, I love it.
Yeah. Yeah, great name. Everything about it is great, and these guys are doing this where it's like you name it that you can check into anything, and that's what when their numbers, and I talked to them about it. I said when their numbers start to surpass the market leaders who they're leveraging the data from, you've got a problem within the industry if you've got more users than the market leaders do,
Sure.
independently and combined. So, but when you look at retail going forward. The obvious thing is payments, right? The obvious thing to get involved in is a couple of things. Obviously is price checking, which is kind of happening right now. Then you've got inventory control, which is kind of happening right now. I think guys like Amazon, the e-tailers, really pioneered that ability to, and even we have up here in Canada, it's Future Shop or Best Buy or these guys. I remember that day where you could see what kind of, or IKEA, you could see the inventory in the store of that product, which was revolutionary at the time. So now we're bringing that into the mobile space. And then mobile payments and mobile checkout is the next stage. Is there something that gets you very excited about what's about to happen that mobile's going to have a play in beyond those? Because this is what we're working on now. And it's going to take a number of years for that to become mainstream. But you've got to be thinking about, okay, what's going to happen next? Where does this go? Do we still have stores? Do we have one store that just has every product in the world, right?
Right. And aisle, right?
Yeah. It's like one aisle. It's you've got the product that you want, and then it gives you everything about that product, where you can buy it, the cheapest price, whether it's shipped faster here and it's cheaper there. Like, where does retail go from this point? Because mobile's poised to have a big impact on its livelihood, I would say. Maybe I'm just sounding the alarm.
No, I agree with you. Well, I think you have your classical things in what's happening in retail with all tech, which is whenever there's a new technology, there are going to be winners and losers, and there's a power shift. And that power shift with mobile is really broad because it's even bigger than what happened with the web. And what I mean by that is you're going to see card associations caught up in it, loyalty companies. I was talking with the head of business development for a loyalty card. They actually print the loyalty cards. Imagine how worried they are.
Yeah.
And she said actually, we're at this conference looking for the future of our business because we know that this volume is declining and soon it will be gone.
Yeah.
And we have to figure that out.
Are they figuring it out?
Had some ideas. So, I think there are always winners and losers with technological change. And at least we're seeing some incredible numbers for the people who are adopting Aislebuyer. I've heard other early stories of some people doing certain kinds of mobile marketing where they're seeing unusually high ROI. I would point out that marketing in general lends itself to always finding the new. Yeah. So whenever the audience becomes saturated with one kind of message or one type of message, they start to tune out. This happened with TV ads. It happens with every kind of medium for communicating. Mobile is, I think, the next huge opportunity area for marketing. It's like it's kind of a combination of paper circulars meets web-based email spam.
It's so compelling. It's so compelling, Andrew.
Well, if you think about it, I would argue the biggest problem with mass emailing right now is that it's not targeted.
Yeah.
If all the offers were perfectly tailored for me to the point that I actually cared, I'd actually enjoy receiving those offers.
Sure.
And then
if there was an absolute benefit. Yeah, we got to figure. if you can figure that out, it doesn't become spam. It just becomes important to you.
Right. Helpful suggestions for my next shopping trip. Well, that's interesting, right? Talking about the border, and this has been a problem since the beginning of publications, but the borderline between advertising and information, and this, hence I don't know if you've ever seen advertorials, but whether there's an advertorial or anything else, certainly there's this blend between advertising and just useful information. And my hope is that I'll live to see the death of traditional advertising. I always say this, by the way, so people are thinking I'm crazy. I always say I think traditional advertising is going to disappear as we know it. And what I mean by that is this concept of interruption advertising. I think even television advertising on that medium is going to become highly intelligent, where it really will be personalized for that single set-top box in that single house. And they're seeing totally different ads than the people next door. And you already see this on local access cable, where one region's getting one ad versus another. Still, that's only very limited geo-targeting. And I think we're going to move into the era of hyper geo-targeting with hyper, basically one-to-one access, where you'll know maybe these 5 people who own these phones are all in this room watching this screen. And so we should show these 5 things because we know it's relevant to them. And just keep it highly, highly relevant all the time. So
you see a lot of that, and I think that when you talk about retail access and targeting messages, there's a lot of companies that are at the forefront of allowing people to identify what they're watching on television, or allowing people to identify what they're doing in this moment. And then it's up to those companies to be able to then get engaged with those people. So, there's an app, actually a Toronto-based company, there's an app called Miso that allows you to check into television shows. And so they leave a lot of information. It's your breadcrumb. Like, I check into this television show. So why wouldn't you be able to then tailor an ad directly to me based on my profile? So if I have a loyalty card, so say I use Aislebuyer and I have somewhere in there, you guys have a loyalty program, and they noticed that, and I've signed up. I said, look, this is the show that I'm watching. I have a loyalty card to the Gap, and so I get a tailored piece of a nugget of information just for me because it's relevant to me. Is that the golden chalice when it comes to advertising? I think that's where we're heading, because what's working right now on a broad appeal is not effective anymore, as you've said.
If I had to say, as surely as technology is always trying to find the new thing that people will adopt, and we're following that Moore's Law curve, I think advertising is evolving too. And what you're seeing is that it's the never-ending quest for higher ROI, right? And it's the reason people are moving into mobile marketing is because they're doing early test and learn. And let me give you an example. I'll throw out the eBay one, which everyone always talks about. First multi-billion-dollar app.
Yeah.
Right? Multi-billion-dollar app. Yeah. Okay. That's pretty real.
That's a good amount of money there from an app. Good infrastructure behind it. It's ROI, and it's also I think it's 100% ROI that a lot of these people are looking for, but it's also it's measurable, and which is one of the great things about mobile. So one of the things that I like about what you guys are doing is that you really are. You're identifying the products of highest value inside of a store. So before you would pay for shelf space at eye level, now as a retailer I can make some decisions based on the analytics that you guys are providing about where that product should be, so that I can sell more of those because they seem to be in demand, or I can see decline, and I can also work on inventory, and all that has a massive impact just from scanning barcodes. Really, sure. That's some great value, isn't it?
Well, I think there are 2 things that are really exciting about what we're doing for the retailer. One is that we're getting the user to always acknowledge location when they start shopping. And then the second is that we're helping the retailer understand what the consumers are actually shopping for, whether they end up buying it or not. And I think that's a huge missing gap in retail today. We went through and we must have talked to 100+ store managers of physical stores, and there is no data on what people are picking up off the shelf and then putting back.
Of course,
nobody knows. They don't even know. They don't know the numbers. They don't know what products, what free. There's nothing. There's no data.
there's Andrew. There's usually a sign above it says, "You break it, you bought it." Right.
That's true. That's true.
Right. It's like,
so I think that data is very, very useful for the retailer.
Well, let me finish this up by asking you just a forward-thinking question. When it comes to mobile and retail, is this a how far out are we from this having a transformative experience from a user perspective? That fewer humans in the stores. That kind of stuff. Some of the bold things that we've been talking about here. How far out do you think that we are from seeing this adoption?
I'm going to say it really will be the 36 months that everyone's talking about, where you're going to see things really change. But I don't think it's going to be the technologies that people expect. I think it's for a technology like ours that's already in the market, it'll still take 36 months for that to actually have the impact that people are talking about. I just want to go back to the dot-com boom for a second. Everyone was talking about the future of broadband and how quickly that was going to uptake. Now, broadband was actually available, and people didn't adopt it. So I just like to point to, most of these technologies that people are theorizing about don't actually exist. They're not real yet. And what I mean by real is they're not deployed in even a single store with anybody shopping with them. So to go from even a single store deployment to lots of impact and seeing shifts like where you're talking about, I would say is at least 36 months.
3 years away.
Yeah, at least 3. And then, but, we all hope it'll be overnight. I just think that, I think even if we saw the kinds of numbers we saw in our first chain, to get to massive impact where that's, across the nation, all the retailers have to adopt some kind of mobile infrastructure. And then beyond that, people actually have to learn about it and use it. It just takes time, it takes some time. But the good thing is every holiday season we have unbearable lines in the U.S. There, in one particular toy chain, they were on average over 2 hours during during peak periods. So, I walk into this store and I asked where the end of the line was, and literally the line started at the front of the store because it wrapped the edge of the entire store all the way back around. And, I found the line at the same time as this dad with these 3 kids under age 10, kids hanging on the edge of the cart, and one's under the little cubby cart. The third one's hanging around his neck. And and we both walk up to the line at the same time. I couldn't believe that that's where it was, and I just saw the look in his face. And it was a sad look. So
in order to quiet his kids down, he had to give them the Christmas presents right then and there in line, didn't he?
I think so.
Okay, so what is the thing that gets you so excited about what keeps you up? What doesn't let you sleep at night when you look at this? What is it that you look at this and say, God, I can't believe we're changing this or we're doing this? What is that thing?
Well, I think we're going to have hundreds of competitors in the next 12 months.
Yeah.
We've seen more than 10 companies claiming they're moving into our space in the last 3. What keeps me up at night is that I think Aislebuyer is the first, but this is going to happen, and whether it's us or somebody else, and it's going to move. The amazing thing about mobile to me is that it's moving at exponentially faster than the web did.
Yeah.
I mean, it really is keeping. If Moore's law really means that every 2 years everything technology speed doubles. I mean, things are moving so fast; it's hard for humans to keep up with them.
Yeah.
So
you can't even see it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I mean, you can only work 18 hours a day. There's no 8th day.
There's no way. Well, if you can invent that, that's why I'm trying to. My next technology is going to be teleportation and time machines, as I said.
What about cloning? Cloning could be good.
Well, cloning, that's a different thing. Oh, listen, Andrew, I know you're pressed for time. Listen, I really appreciate you coming on and talking to us about this. You guys are obviously at the forefront of what's going on in this space and making the impacts that are necessary in order to make the impact in retail as a result of mobile. So I'll really look forward to following you guys as you progress through this, and would love to have you back on at a later time to talk about this again and see where things are in a quarter or two and see how things are shaping up for you guys.
That'd be great. Thanks so much for the time, Rob.
Well, I appreciate it. So I've been speaking with Andrew Paradise, who's the founder and CEO of Aislebuyer, and I want to thank you guys for listening and or watching this episode of Untethered.tv. Thanks very much.